My name is Samuel Sam McAllister, and I was 65 when it happened. I'd retired from GE Aviation in Evendale, born and raised on turbine noise and the light sting of jet fuel, hands that still remember grease, calluses that never really softened, and one habit people like to call a quirk: keeping receipts. Paper for everything. Oil changes on the Tacoma, winter tires, the church choir donation, a transfer to my son. I always kept them, not as a threat, as peace. A Thursday in early July, right before the holiday, the neighborhood already smelled like charcoal and new-cut grass. Snap, the dog on the corner, barked the same way he's barked since '09. I was stirring coffee in Linda's mug, my wife, who passed in the fall of 2019 after a fight that started like a little cough and ended like a storm, when WhatsApp dropped that metallic ping. McAllisters and kin, nearly the whole family in a little green square, brothers, nieces, and nephews. My daughter Nora and my boy Derek, early 30s, capped backward in the avatar, holding Ava, my granddaughter, smiling like he still thinks he can slap the world into behaving. They were hashing out Saturday's cookout. Who's bringing ice, who's got salad, who's got leftover fireworks from last year. I was going to bring Kroger hot dogs and that bacon bean casserole Linda taught me back in our first place, when the stove flame cut out if you shut the oven door too hard. Simple plan. Until his message. Guys, just a heads up, Grandpa doesn't have Zelly again, lol. If you want to bring drinks, bring them. And someone please explain to him that in 2025 nobody pays by check, for the love. Last week he still owed me $200 for Kings Island. Boomer being boomer. That clown emoji hit harder than I wanted to admit. 2 quick cousin laughs popped up, and Kelsey, Derek's wife, sent, "Babe, knock it off." He answered with a facepalm gif. "I'm just kidding, but I'm not." Then the kick. Truth is, I carry a lot from this dad. He lives alone, we're always helping. If he doesn't want to be embarrassed on Saturday, he can pay me today. The coffee turned sour in my mouth. I read it again. Didn't skip a comma. Me, who'd been lifting weight off my own son's shoulders since 2018 like flicking a stone out of a tire, painted there as dead weight. Me, who put down a rental deposit when he was between jobs, who covered the family cell plan for years, who paid months and months of Ava's daycare, who stomped out an ER bill after a dumb softball sprain, who signed for a used Dodge Charger with a teenage growl. Me, the debtor? I breathed, but it felt like breathing in a room somebody just painted. I didn't answer. I set the mug down and walked to the buffet, solid wood, the one Linda loved because it reminded her of her mother, and pulled the drawer with rails that squeak like an old door. Inside, what most people call that paper box. To me, it was a built motor, hanging folders with my blocky labels. Derek, 2018-2025. Kelsey, house, Ruble Place. Plan, Verizon. Sunshine, daycare. Good Sam, hospital. Charger, contract. Each tab a little piece of the wire that dragged me to now. I sat on the carpet like a man stripping a carb. I wasn't in a hurry. When I finished, I didn't want a single doubt. All I smelled was paper and sticker glue, and the kitchen radio kept me company with an NPR voice talking about a photo exhibit downtown. I opened the first folder. A firm Bank of America check. Spring of 21, 12 grand in the memo. Down payment, 10%, house in Delhi. I'd helped Derek and Kelsey plant both feet in a brick ranch on Ruble Place, a fenced yard. The small-scale American dream, but a dream. Then a run of colorful receipts from Sunshine Early Learning Center in Price Hill, the kind with little kid sticker glitter stuck in the corner. $685 a month, 10 months straight on my card. Just under 7 grand that year when Kelsey went back to work, and Derek swore the barbershop would pay once the clientele stuck. I kept every payment received email. I pulled the family Verizon plan summary. 4 lines, a full 3 years. About $180 a month. Sounds small until you multiply it and watch about 6.5 grand drift away. I clipped in a formal email from Good Samaritan Hospital. Payment confirmed, $2,300, case closed. My back tightened again when I hit a colder line. Rent transfers to Derek over Zelle, 6 times at the end of 2019, $1,200 each. $7,200, when AutoZone kept trimming hours until his paycheck felt like a leaky bucket. Farther back, the piece that went down hardest, the charger contract, a document I drafted in a brown-covered notebook, then took to the UPS on Glenway to get notarized. Vehicle loan, 2017 Dodge Charger, just under 10 grand, payments of $350 a month, always due on the 5th. More than 2 months late authorizes the creditor, Sam, to take the vehicle title in his name. Our signatures. My pen that skipped. The UPS clerk handing me a blue pen and saying, "Sign again, sir, so it doesn't fade." Under that, my month-by-month line. July, August, September paid. October, November, December, nothing. January, 100 noted carefully. February, March, April, May, nothing. 4 whole months with 0. The kind of sequence you hate to write because every 0 stings. I stacked 19 clear proofs that spoke for themselves. And the more I stacked, the less my back knotted, and the anger turned useful, like heat in a winter garage. Something you can stand if you know what you're doing. I fired up the Epson scanner, the one that chirps like a cricket when it grabs a sheet. Scanned each one, named the files plain as day. Down payment, house, Derek.pdf. Sunshine Daycare, month, 1 PDF. Verizon family, 3 years, summary.pdf. Hospital, goodsam.pdf. Charger contract lates.pdf. Then bundled them, simple cover, big letters. Proof. Who's carrying who? Samuel P. McAllister, 2018 through 25. In the corner, in my own hand. This isn't humiliation, it's memory. If you're a father or you've ever needed one, listen up. What I did next wasn't just an answer. It was a vaccine. Stick with me because these pages are about to turn like an old gear finding a fresh tooth. I sent a message to the group. Calm voice typed out, "Good morning, first things first, I love you. Please read the proofs, thank you." I attached pictures of the main ones and a link to the whole file. Sent. The phone went quiet. And you know how even WhatsApp silence can feel heavy? That. A couple minutes ticked by, long enough to flip an egg. My heart thumped like a rubber mallet. Solid, not frantic. First to speak was my sister Jean from Covington, who never uses half a word. Sam. And that shocked face emoji that looks just like her real face. My brother Mike. Geez. Nora. Dad, I didn't know half of this. And then Derek. This is private. You're ridiculous for airing it like this. We were joking. Plus an eye roll gif. I read it, and for the first time since Linda left, I felt my house had walls again. I answered slow, but my fingers didn't twitch. Derek, you aired me out first. You called me a debtor and dead weight to the family. I don't owe the 200 from Kings Island. Here's the record of paying your card on Tuesday. And here's what I've been covering for years. Not to throw it in your face. To remember. I don't need applause. I need respect. I attached a cutout of the Charger contract, underlined the missed months. Next to it, a photo of the title in my name. Kelsey messaged me on the side. "Sam, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was all like this. I'm so sorry for what Derek said." I wrote back, "Thank you, honey. This is between me and Derek, but you're more honest than a lot of men. You can always talk to me." Derek came back, pride wounded. "You're not my bank. Stop itemizing my marriage. You should be ashamed." I held the phone and thought about oil that never leaves your nails no matter how hard you scrub. Thought about how anger without a plan is an engine without oil. It seizes. I drank some cold water, came back to the keys and typed, "I'd be ashamed if I'd lied. I'm doing 2 things today. First, canceling every auto payment I set up for you. Second, enforcing the car contract because it's chronically late. You've got the weekend to grab your personal stuff. Monday morning, I'm picking up the Charger at your place and taking it for appraisal and sale. You can come along. The rest we settle with a receipt and a sheet. Proof." Sent. Then I closed the app like dropping a hood and went outside for air. Sat on the porch, the wooden chair making its usual groan, and listened to a robin singing on the line. The neighbor ran his mower and that fresh-cut smell rose up like a childhood memory. I looked at the Cincinnati sky, slate gray sometimes even in summer, and felt whole at my own address. I didn't know it yet, but that choice to send receipts was going to test more than my son. It was going to test my whole family and a little bit of the city. Mornings after Linda turned into ritual. Coffee in her old machine, the newspaper spread on the oak table we grabbed at a clearance on Colleran Avenue. The ceiling light that always threatened to burn out but didn't. If I closed my eyes, I could hear her washing dishes and me yelling from the yard, "Lynn, grab a towel. The oil ran into the grass." She'd laugh. The house stored her laugh somewhere nobody can find, but I feel it when my hand slides along the chairbacks. Sometimes I light a vanilla candle just to trick my nose into thinking it's cake day. When you lose, you invent ways to win back small pieces. I was a poor kid with hands full of work. My father was the kind who believed words only count if they're backed by work. He taught me two things I never forgot. Torque without a good tool shreds your fingertips, and lend without paper, get it back without a friend. I only understood the second one as a grown man. Linda and I raised our two kids with the same manual. Love down to the bone, but a voice that echoes. Nora's always been the steady puller. Derek, the fire that burns without checking the wind. Neither one owes me anything but the respect of looking me in the eye. Midlife tricks you into thinking love means closing your eyes to the other person's flaws. I learned late that love is opening your eyes and staying anyway. The first time Derek skidded, it was more emergency than character. He worked a parts counter for a while, but they cut hours, then cut him. He came home with that wet dog look. He was ashamed. I said, "Son, pull up a chair. Let's add." I wrote in a gray-covered notebook, rent, water, electric, gas, groceries. The monthly total hurt. A few hundred and a handful of change that felt like mockery. I flipped the page, ran my finger down the right column, and said, "I'll cover rent for 6 months, $1,200 at each turn. You find your gear, then we talk." He cried. I never forgot. A man's tears aren't weakness. They mean there's still water inside. Then came the barber shop. I rooted for him. Painted his name on 2 signs in black. I went on day 1, sat down, let him cut hair that barely needed scissors, left a tip he didn't want. Months later, the shop closed like the door just got tired of opening. The clients didn't come. Kelsey kept the household together. Ava showed up and lit my heart back up, the clean burn smell of kids' shampoo, a small hand warm at the center, and with Ava came bills. Daycare hits every month like a hammer. $685 plus a sign-up fee of 30-something, plus a few bucks in late fees if you were 20 minutes behind. I paid 10 months in a row. Easiest thing I ever did. My dream was to make sure that little girl had ground under her feet. In the middle of all that, I held the small things you hold and don't tell anyone because they feel trivial. Swapped Kelsey's car battery on a freezing January day and paid about $130 at O'Reilly. Covered a Good Samaritan bill when Derek moved wrong at second base, slipped in the wet dirt and blew out his ankle. $2,300. Did it without thinking. He texted, "Dad, you saved me." I answered, "Receipt saved." He laughed. I was just being me. Summer of 21, they found the house in Delhi. Linda and I had dreamed of our kids in places of their own. No upstairs neighbor noise, not that apartment feel that kills the urge to plant. Rubel Place, a brick ranch with a tree that looked like it was blessing the sidewalk. I covered 10% of the down payment, $12 grand. It felt good, holding the key with him on the porch. He said, "I'll pay you back, Dad. I mean it. We'll make it right." I put a hand on his shoulder. "I believe you." The Charger came a couple years later. I already had my issues with that car, maybe because its noise sounded like it laughed at the gas it drank without guilt. I said, "Son, that car is a splurge. If you want it, we'll do it right." My version of right was what I know. Paper, a notary, a clause to take it back if it went more than 2 months late. He laughed. "Dad, seriously?" I tapped the pen. He signed. At the time, it gave me peace. A good contract is the kind you never have to look at. I didn't know I'd be copying that paper one day to send by text. There are smaller things that, stacked up, turn into weight you only feel when you lift it. Family cell plan, 4 lines. Me in charge because somebody has to, about $180 a month. Invisible stuff like streaming, app fees, ad-free music. On paper, they're $5, $12, $15. On the card, they turn into $100 you barely notice. I'm no saint. I've got my indulgences. A good tool when it's on sale. A new curtain that suits the wood in the living room. But I always added it up first. And I always kept the slip. I'm telling you all this because when that group message landed, I didn't react just as a wounded father. I reacted as a man who's built engines and knows a loose part. If you don't tighten it, we'll shred the whole assembly. I wasn't going to yell, I was going to tighten. And the way I knew, same as always, was proof. That afternoon, while I waited for the WhatsApp dust to settle, I went out to the garage. My '09 Tacoma was there with the tires I put on last winter, still black like they were painted yesterday. I opened the toolbox, big flathead in the cloth roll, my metal flashlight heavier than it needed to be. I put each one in the backpack, tossed in a plastic folder with the charger contract, a copy of the title with my name, a notepad with a little label in my handwriting, personal items list. Not that I was going to war. I was going to work on a stuck machine. Back in the living room, I ran my hand over Linda's photo. That smile kept behind the glass. "Lynn," I said low, "if you were here, you'd tease me about my receipt habit." I swear for a second I heard her laugh like, "Go gentle." So I did. I didn't imagine it, but the next 48 hours were about to gather everything I'd learned and ask a little more. If you want to know how a rope snaps, don't stare at the strand that breaks. Count how many careless tugs came before. The family chat turned into a room with an echo. A couple hours after I dropped that PDF, my phone buzzed with the kind of urgency that isn't an emergency. It's gossip. A cousin from Kelsey's side slid in with, "Dang, Uncle Sam, you're organized, huh?" That tone that isn't asking for praise, it's asking for an audience. A niece cracked a joke about Grandpa's PowerPoint. I held on to the urge to answer. Jean, bless her, sent a, "Show your uncle some respect," and the voices dipped. Silence came back. Better that way. After dark, Derek texted me on the side. The tone was half boy, half man. "Dad, you didn't have to do that in the group." I breathed before I hit record. "Son, you mocked me in public. I answered with facts in public. If you'd called me first, I would have shown you everything in private. But now, I need a boundary. And boundaries don't just get whispered in an ear. Sometimes they're said in the living room." He went quiet a few minutes, then sent, I'm short a few bucks, okay, but I was gonna pay you." I typed only, "I don't doubt it, but a promise without a date is wind." Late that night, when the neighborhood was down to a far-off engine and the odd firework someone couldn't save for the holiday, I sat with my notebook and did something that hurt more than I expected. I put in the same column all the things I'd been covering for Derek, the ones without tidy, round numbers. About $380 a month in takeout, a hair over 100 in apps and subscriptions nobody remembered to cancel, around 62 on the little stuff, extra coffees, parking, a fancy candy bar at the corner shop, a card fee for being 2 days late. Add it up and it's about $546 and change. Just leaks. Put Ava's daycare on the same page, just under $700. Add the cell plan, about $180. Before you fire up the stove or fill the tank, my son's life was already about $1,400 and change heavier each month. That hurts. That alone can knock a man on his heels. Stretch it across a year and you start to see why the end of the month looks exactly like the beginning. I wrote the numbers carefully, not to rub it in, to remind myself that a bad situation doesn't come from one big tragedy. It's made of 20 little things that together slow cook your dignity. Kelsey sent another message, this time a short voice note sounding like she'd carried her face low all day. "Sam, I'll cancel the lines, I promise. And I'll talk to my mom about helping with Ava 2 afternoons a week. I'm embarrassed." I answered with the kindness she never got from her own father. "Honey, embarrassment is for lies. What you're doing is adjustment. And adjustment is a good thing." Next morning, pale Cincinnati sun catching the dust in the living room window, I fired up the Tacoma and headed to Rubel Place. Rang the bell. Kelsey opened in an oversized hoodie, eyes shadowed. "Hi, Sam." "Hi, honey." Derek left early, said he was gonna take care of the car. I nodded. "I'm here to grab Ava's things from the back seat. I don't want any of her stuff getting lost." "Thanks for not yelling in the group," she whispered. "This isn't about shame," I said, and felt it was bigger than that morning. It's about clarity. I unlocked the charger with the spare, the key Derek handed me when we signed the contract, saying, "Here, Dad, you'll never need it." I took out the car seat with the care you use unboxing a new doll, a bag with 2 Hot Wheels, a strawberry-colored jacket, wrote the items down, asked Kelsey to initial. Inventory work is boring, but it saves friendships. I started the engine. The motor woke up thick, smooth shift, left a note on the doorframe. Took it for appraisal, Sam, and I left. On the highway, the Cincinnati skyline showed up like an old photograph, the Roebling laying a blue ribbon across the river, and beyond it, that ribcage of buildings you can ID with your eyes closed. I thought of Derek as a little boy, skinned knee, asking for ice cream after falling off his bike. You can't drive a car that isn't yours on arguments alone. I had a contract. I had the title. I had a heart, but a heart isn't a steering wheel. At the CarMax in Fairfield, a kid in a blue polo with a nicely practiced smile greeted me with a "good morning" I could believe. Appraisal? That's right. I handed over the paperwork like you hand your ID to a stranger. He took pictures, popped the hood, hooked up a scanner that beeped like a microwave. While I waited, I sat on a bench. Families came and went. Kids pointed at shiny SUVs like they were Christmas trees. Husbands haggled like they were buying horses 100 years ago. I remembered '03, me and Linda at a CarMax in Columbus, her nudging me. "Sam, that silver sedan's overpriced. We're honest used car folks," and the laugh that made the showroom air feel lighter. The kid came back with a clipboard. "Mr. McAllister, our offer comes in just under 20 grand. I knew the range. Not a gift, but fair. I signed paper after paper until the pen got warm. They queued the transfer to hit my bank on the next business day. I walked out with a sales agreement envelope and a relief that wasn't revenge. It was order returning to a place it hadn't been. In the lot, my phone buzzed. "You stole my car, I'm calling the cops." Derek. I took 2 photos with the same phone, one of the contract, one of the title in my name. "The police can come to my place, have coffee and read with me. And I've got good coffee." He didn't answer. Silence is sometimes the start of understanding. Sometimes it's just a breath before the next accusation. I had muscle built for both. Back home, I ate a mustardy sandwich that gives you a friendly slap and used my favorite strength, addition. Wrote in the notebook, received, CarMax, just under 20,000. Subtracted the principal on the loan, just shy of 10 grand. Added the unpaid installments, call it a little over 3 grand because 1 month he tossed in 100, the next 4 he sent nothing, and arithmetic has a hammer's sense of humor. It doesn't laugh. That put the tab we needed to clear at just under 13 grand. What was left? About 66.50. I split 3 ways. 2 grand into Ava's college plan, that 529. I opened on the bank's site with a few clicks that take longer because my home internet is stubborn. Another 2 grand into a savings account in Nora's name. She's held my hand without asking for a receipt. And the last 26.50 I left in a box on my own ledger. Moral credit for Derek. If he ever decides to pay, that could be a seed, not a taunt. A reminder that love isn't a bottomless fund. Later, I sent a short note in the group. No spitting. Update. Per the proofs in the contract, I sold the Charger. Attached are the CarMax paperwork and transfer confirmation. As of today, I'm off Derek and Kelsey's cell plan. You've got 3 days to port your lines. I'm also done covering daycare. I spoke with Kelsey and she's already worked out help with her mom. I'm fine. Saturday's cookout is on for anyone who shows up with respect. I'll bring the sausages, I'll bring the receipts only if asked. Nora answered on the same beat. I'm with you. Love you. John sent the kind of message she does best. You were firm and loving. Mike dropped his minimalist thumbs up. That means you're right. Kelsey said, we'll move the lines. Thank you for everything, Sam. Derek vanished. And that vanishing, you learn, weighs just as much as a shout. I fell asleep early, not from age, but from finishing a marathon. Before I closed my eyes, I thought of Linda's spoon in a pot. I did it my way, Lynn, I told the ceiling, with a receipt. I didn't know it yet, but on Saturday the backyard was going to turn into a stage, and I was going to speak without a mic. Cookout Saturday woke up with the kind of sun that throws pretty shadows on the grass. I seasoned the sausages the same as always. Salt, pepper, a pinch of brown sugar Linda swore would caramelize without showing off. I made the bacon beans that never miss. I strung little flags from the fence to the garage and thought about all this yard has seen. Kids sprinting with water pistols, Linda teaching Ava to water plants without drowning them, me changing the Tacoma's oil and forgetting to toss the filter box the same day. A good life is full of tiny, forgivable lapses. People rolled in. Mike brought corn tied with string, the old school way you drop it on the grill and let it char a little. Jean arrived with a peach pie that looked like watercolor. The neighbors popped up over the fence like they do, asking if the Reds are finally going to get it together. And we laughed because rooting for the Reds is an exercise in faith. Ava showed up in a blue dress speckled with white stars, ran to me, and latched onto my leg like a friendly tick. She smelled like kids' shampoo. Grandpa, my car's gone. I took her inside and pointed to the shelf where, since the day before, I'd set the bag with the car seat things, 2 Hot Wheels, and the strawberry jacket. Right here, sweetheart. She hugged me with both arms. A granddaughter's hug cures a cat scratch and a toothache in one go. Near sundown, when the angle of light helps the mosquitoes plan their invasion, Derek came in through the side gate. The silence that fell was different from the chats. Grill smoke in the air, laughter drying up, crickets clocking in. He walked over and stopped a few steps away. That set jaw I've known since he was 12. I put the tongs down, wiped my hands on a dish towel with little corn cobs, and waited. You humiliated me, Dad. His voice wasn't loud, it was sandpapered with nerves. I gave you a memory, I said. That's what came out. And I gave you a boundary. You humiliated me first, in the group, calling me a debtor. I answered with receipts. He looked around, maybe hunting for a ready-made audience. There wasn't one, family was there, but nobody was a stage. I kept going, same tone I used when I taught him to change a tire. No rushing, no memorized lines. You want to be treated like a man? Act like one. I'm done buying roofs you promise and never raise. I'm not a zero-interest bank. I'm not a punching bag. I'm your father. Respect me. And take care of your daughter. Kelsey's been carrying too much alone. He opened his mouth, shut it. His first move has always been to yell. It didn't come. His shoulders dropped half an inch. I never thought you kept everything, he said. I thought you did it because you wanted to. I did it because I love you. And because I thought you needed time. But help without limits turns into abuse, Derek. Abuse of my time, my wallet, my name. He stared at the ground for a long beat. His jaw creaked like a rusty hinge, but nothing came out for a few seconds. What do you want me to do? The way he asked wasn't a man taking orders. It was a man asking for a map. 3 things, I said, and I watched his face brace like he was waiting for a grocery list. First, apologize in the group, not to put me on a pedestal, to balance what you did in public. Second, get steady work, not gig talk that turns into an excuse when it falls through. Third, Tuesday night, you come here, we sit down, and build your budget on paper. I've got a notebook and a pen. You've got 2 hands, we'll sketch a plan. I paused and let a 4th thing out, one I should have said earlier. And 4th, have a cup of coffee with me with no phone on the table. He nodded once. Small answer, but whole. Naomi, Kelsey's mom, texted her from across the yard. Nora scooped up Ava and pushed her on the swing. The air lightened. I went back to the grill, flipped a sausage, and one of them popped in that way that makes everybody look. Life keeps going even when you swear it's jammed. That night, before everyone left, I heard a small click, the little sound of the lock on my chest shutting the way it should. Little did I know that apology I asked for, if it came, was about to open more doors than I expected. Sunday, after the bean pot hit the fridge and the paper flags went soggy with humidity, the phone buzzed early. Derek, in the group. His text came clean, no emojis, no gifs, no "if you felt" hedges. Folks, I crossed a line on Thursday. I was unfair to my dad and ridiculous in public. I don't carry anything. He's carried me more than I deserved. I'm sorry for putting it out there, and thanks, Dad, for the receipts. It hurt, but it opened my eyes. Jean sent a heart, her version of a hug. Mike sent, "That's it." Nora, my anchor, wrote, "Love you guys." I sent only, "Thanks, son." And in the tidy way that moves me, I attached a screenshot of Ava's 529 with $2,000 deposited. Investing in a sure future. It wasn't to show off. It was to remind myself that the energy I took from the charger had to go forward, not backward. I figured the whole thing would die in that little room on our phones and in our backyard. But gossip's a wind that doesn't ask permission. A cousin passed it to the extended McAllister's chat. An aunt mentioned it to a neighbor in the cereal aisle at Kroger. Someone from the church choir caught me in the parking lot and said, "Sam, your backbone was an example." I hadn't gone looking for applause. It found me. To tell the truth, that made me uncomfortable, and maybe that's why I did something that on paper sounds like too much, and in practice was transformation. I took the same PDF of receipts I'd sent the family and wrote a short letter, 2 pages, about boundaries, respect, and the value of writing things down. I didn't use Derek's name. I didn't need to. I told it in a way anyone could get. If you call me a debtor in public, I'll answer with receipts. If you paint me as deadweight, I'll show you how much I've carried. I printed 20 copies of that letter with the PDF on the back. Yes, both sides of the page, old habit of saving paper, and left 5 on the church bulletin board, 5 at the neighborhood association, 3 at the Veterans Club in Evendale, 2 at the parish hall where we play dominoes on Wednesday nights, and handed 5 to Mike for his fishing buddies. Across the top I wrote, "Read the receipts." Nothing else. Kelsey called later that same day with the voice of someone bracing for what the street might say. "Sam, aren't we going to become a topic?" I breathed and looked out the window. A small cloud drifted slowly by, its tail frayed. "Honey, you know what happens when you turn a light on in a room? The roaches scatter and the people who aren't roaches see better. You're no roach. Your marriage isn't a roach. This isn't defamation. It's remembering, with proof." She went quiet, then said, "I think we needed this." I answered, "So do I." Midweek, I went to the UPS on Glenway, the same place where the clerk handed me the blue pen, to make extra copies of the charger contract, not because I planned to use them, but because it hurts less when the drawer has more than enough. When I pushed through the door, the kid at the counter clocked me. "Mr. McAllister," he said, "I liked your letter." I laughed. "Kid? I only know how to build engines. Paper, I'm still learning." He gave me an unasked-for discount and wrote with a red pen in the corner of the slip, "Receipt." I saved it. Tuesday night, like we said, Derek came over. Parked the loaner out front. Not a pretty car, a car that runs. He walked in with both hands empty, a good sign. I sat him at the oak table, opened the notebook with the black pen I like because it doesn't bleed. "Let's start at the start," I said. "Income, fixed, variable. I don't want the dream. I want what actually lands." He furrowed his brow, reached for numbers from memory, and I said, "No, go get the receipts." He flushed, came back with statements, slips, screenshots. We started building columns. "Eating out? That's my pleasure, Dad. We keep pleasures, but we tune them. How much? About 3-something? Write the harder number. 380. Apps? Those are cheap. Altogether, how much? A hair over 100. Write it. Gas? Depends. Write the average. Streaming? 2 we use and 1 we forgot. Cut the forgotten one. And on we went, line by line, about an hour and a half that felt like 15 minutes, because honest work keeps its own time. I watched him see for himself that the money disappeared where he thought it was safe. I didn't need to fight. I needed to point. At the end, we had a number. He looked at the total with that "why didn't anyone tell me" face. I pointed at the imaginary mirror. You didn't ask. By the end of the night, after a black coffee with no sugar and 2 slices of buttered bread he ate like it was a Sunday cookout, he said, "I'm gonna talk to the guys at the shop. I want to go full time." I nodded. The engine caught. The gear went in. He left. I went to the porch and looked at a nearly empty street. The streetlight made that old electrical hum. I felt the house breathe. I lay down and slept dreamless, the kind of sleep your back thanks you for. 2 weeks later, I saw the change right there in the chat. Derek posted a photo of the signed paperwork. Yeah, he took a pic of the actual paper because in his head everything starts digital, and wrote, "Electrical supply store. They made me full-time. Thanks for the notebook, Dad. I sent proud of you." Kelsey sent a typed and spoken hallelujah. We laughed. I dusted off something I'd forgotten I love, teaching. The next 2 sit-downs were less about cutting and more about building a life that fits the wallet without shaming the heart. He found, right there in the notebook, 100 little spots to trim $5 and save $500 without feeling it. "I'd never seen it like this," he said. "Receipts help you see," I said back. He laughed. Inside joke. Ours. The story leaked outside the family in a way I couldn't control. A little neighborhood paper called. "Mr. McAllister, can we tell this case of boundaries with receipts?" I thought about becoming a meme. I thought about becoming a tool. "You can," I said, "but leave my son's name out. Use mine. I can take it. Don't turn him into a cartoon villain." The reporter respected that. A short piece ran with a headline that read like an internet joke. In the family chat, a dad answers a hit with receipts and saves the relationship. I smiled. In the end, that's what it was. And Derek? For a while, he didn't meet my eyes much, like he was still holding his shame up with his jaw. But slowly he went back to sinking into my squeaky leather couch, sat with me for the game, griped about the ump, and at the break asked, "Dad, did you keep the receipt for that Tacoma tire you bought? I want to see which shop had the good price." I almost hugged him for that. I want to see. If you want to see, you want to learn. If you think the revenge was selling the car, you got halfway there. The revenge was swapping the sticker he slapped on me, dead weight, for the one I've always had, father. And the glue that holds is the kind that comes with lines, notebook lines, contract lines, lifelines. The rest is fireworks noise in the sky, pretty, loud, and gone. 2 months pass different when your hands are busy. The CarMax ACH hit the account and paid more than numbers. I settled that dentist thing that had been needling me. Bought 2 new tires for the Tacoma at a price so good the kid at the shop said, "You've got an eye." And, as a treat, swapped the living room curtains for blue-striped ones Linda would have called "bold for you, Sam." I laughed to myself every morning walking past them. Derek came 3 Tuesdays in a row. The first was the budget. The second, we tuned the credit lines called the bank, lowered limits that only served to give courage to bad buys, cut the app lines that weren't worth it. The third, we did something I didn't think we'd do so soon. We planned savings. He tucked cash into an envelope labeled "new car," a plain one I handed him, the brown paper kind that looks like a bakery bag. He looked at the cardboard, smiled, and said, "It's ugly, but it works," I said. And we both laughed, because that was the heart of it. Make it work. Kelsey started dropping Ava off on afternoons when her shift ran into traffic. Sometimes I'd pick her up at Sunshine. On the way back, the Roebling Bridge looked almost matte, a ribbon of weathered blue cables holding up a whole city without complaint. Ava sat up front, singing softly to a tune she made up, her jacket smelling like strawberries, and I thought about what the bridge teaches me every time I cross. Slender cables together become a strength none of them has alone. A receipt is a slender cable. A boundary is a slender cable. Respect is a slender cable. Love is the bundle. There were stumbles. One day Derek tossed out, half joking in front of cousins, "Dad's my accountant now." Nobody laughed. He clocked it, and right then, slung an arm around my shoulder and said, "My dad is my dad." That day the gears lined up in a new way. One evening he knocked without texting first. Not like him. I opened the door and he was holding a Kroger paper bag. Inside, two simple things: a jar of whole bean coffee from a brand I like and a vanilla candle. He said, "I know you light one when you miss her." He didn't say Linda. He didn't have to. "Thank you, son." We stood in the kitchen, just the two of us, inside a silence that doesn't need filling, and I lit the candle. That warm cake day smell took the room. It wasn't Linda, but it was a slender cable pulling me up. One Sunday afternoon after church, he and I sat on the porch. Snap barked like always. A neighbor shoved a mower past that sounded like an airplane. Derek took a breath. "Dad, I'm sorry." I looked at him. For the chat? For the chat, the car, for turning you into a punching bag for cheap jokes, for calling you a boomer, like that was a good joke. He stared at the floorboards and kept going. I was ungrateful, I didn't see. I let him talk, no interruptions. And when he finished, I said, "I forgive you. But more important than that, I see you. I know you were lost. Now you've got a map. If you get lost again, you know where the gas stations are." We toasted. With two mugs I found funny to use as glasses. Mine with coffee, his with tea. I toasted to freedom. Not the kind the ads sell with fireworks, but the kind that's born when you say, "Enough," and don't walk it back. He gave a soft clink and said, "To freedom," I added, "and to respect." In the family chat, messages drifted back to normal, a better normal. Pics of Ava with a star-shaped hair clip, Mike showing the trout he almost caught, Jean sending a pie recipe that used an ingredient at $2.87 each, which made me laugh. I sent a photo of my yard with the flags tucked away and wrote, "Same time next year." Derek dropped the line that's become our joke, his way of saying, "I'm on track. Read the receipts." The family laughed. I'm not romantic about it. Boundaries don't turn character around overnight. He still steps on a banana peel now and then. I still feel like fixing things he should fix. Only now there are rules. If I help, there's paper. If I lend, there's a contract. If I check, there's a receipt. And if anyone slaps a clown on me, I don't get mad. I pull the folder gently, lay the pages down and ask them to read out loud. Truth on paper has a silence that needs no shout. A few weeks later, under a clean late-day sky, I found a minute for me. Drove up the I-75, took the ramp that gives you that round view of the skyline, crossed the Roebling like I was rolling down a private lane. The river looked like a slow ribbon. I parked on the Covington side, sat on a bench and watched the water run. From my pocket I pulled a crumpled slip, an old O'Reilly receipt from the day I swapped Kelsey's battery. It said, $129.99, paid, card ending 3217. I smiled, not because the number was pretty, because that little piece of paper reminded me who I was, and who I still am. I drove home while the sky turned orange mixed with purple. The porch chair squeaked the same old way when I sat. The house breathed. The vanilla candle still had a finger of flame in the jar. I lifted my coffee mug, alone, and toasted with the person I carry inside. To Linda, who taught me how to season the beans, I said. To Nora, who reminds me to eat when I forget. To Kelsey, who held it together without making noise. To Ava, who smells like strawberries and tomorrow. To Derek, who learned to say, "I'm sorry" and "thank you" almost on the same day. And to me, who learned that a boundary is how you say "I love you" without stuttering. If you ever find yourself in a group, family or not, and someone sticks the wrong label on you, debtor, deadweight, clown, you don't have to shout or flip a table. Do what I did. Walk to your drawer, pull your folder, pick the papers that tell your story the right way. Sign, scan if you want, and with the calm of someone who knows what they've lived, say, "Read the receipts," because in the end, That's what saved my relationship with my son. Not the sale of a car, not the noise we made. It was paper rinsed in respect. It was the smell of a candle in a kitchen with an oak table. It was a toddler's car seat cataloged with care. It was a blue bridge that taught me slender cables braided together turn into steel. It was the click of a lock closing the way it should. It was a father spending the only power he had, example, at the right moment. And it was a son who finally read. And when he really read, the group went quiet again. But this time it was the best kind of quiet. The quiet after, "I forgive you." The quiet of understanding. The quiet that lets a house breathe like a person. The quiet worth raising a glass to. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about the story in the comments. See you in the next one.